people really come first. So the execution followed that. And growth mindset, meaning it's okay to fail, we don't blame each other, we learn from it, and we work together, collaboration. Is it perfect? Of course not. But seeing many other companies who are talking a lot about these concepts, but the execution isn't there, it shows. So it really shows. And that's why I think Microsoft is doing so well these days, because people are happy. There's no success, business success, if there's no employee success. It starts from there. I mean, employees are fans of the company, first of all.
I am really excited to say that we have another fantastic female guest on for this show. Didem Artes is the General Manager of Microsoft's Cloud, Data and AI business in EMEA, but furthermore is on the board of the Creative Education Trust, an amazing organisation set up to help schools in post-industrial areas. And she's also a passionate advocate of women in tech. Didem has had an incredible career growing up in Turkey and then moving to a US-based university where she started her journey in this vocation of technology. Ending up in the UK working for Microsoft, we delve into other things that Didem is passionate about. For example, why there are not more girls in tech-led careers and what business leaders can do to get the right gender balance in their teams. We also discuss Satya Nadella's era and the resurgence of Microsoft. We discuss global issues that could be solved by technology innovation, including predicting incidents of domestic violence through AI. Didem speaks very candidly of her experience of domestic violence. We also discuss Didem's admiration for the legendary American judge and equal rights campaigner and icon, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, RBG as she's known, amongst other things. It's a fantastic interview. I really enjoyed this one. It's Didem Artes. Didem, thank you so much for coming on the Tech Leaders podcast. I'm so excited about this one.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me, Gareth. It's an honor to be here.
No problem at all. And there's so much for us to talk about. I've done a lot of research on yourself and your career is fascinating. But for people who don't know who you are, can you just give us a sort of a broad overview of your sort of career from the point of education right through to where you are now?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I am Turkish, so from Istanbul, and I've always been passionate about technology. I think it's just in my genes coming from a family full of entrepreneurs and mathematicians and engineers. So I knew I was going to be an engineer since I was 5, believe it or not. And that's what I did. I was fortunate to get scholarship to study in the States, electrical engineering. So I left at the age of 17 and studied both engineering and management at the University of Pennsylvania. I followed that North Star, the technology piece, basically throughout my career, Gareth. I'd say about a third of my career is in management consulting, and then 2/3 in the industry, always technology firms. Most recently, if I fast forward at Microsoft for almost 9 years now in total. And professionally, I try to focus on 3 areas: strategy, a vision, 2 to 3 year out strategy, which of course always keeps changing in technology, especially. Secondly, getting things done. I love people. I love working with people internally, externally, across borders. So that operational angle has been very important. And thirdly, sales, business development. I mean, whatever technology, it could be super exciting features and this and that, but anything that doesn't make money won't survive. So I think that's a natural, especially business development, solving problems or growing the pie, scaling a product across globally has been a passion for me. And I've been very fortunate to ride the whole journey from embryonic product development, V0, all the way to launch, scaling to billions. So I'm very grateful for the journey, I would say.
Fantastic. Well, I think I wanted to dig into the early part of your career because you obviously grew up in Turkey. From what I can gather, you then moved to the United States to pursue the second half of your academic journey then, essentially, yeah. So talk us through that cultural transition from growing up in Turkey, from obviously the background that you come from, moving to this obviously this country in the West, which is very sort of capitalist and very I know Turkey is very entrepreneurial, but I think America is very different culturally, isn't it? Talk us through that transition.
For sure. I mean, I think it may be helpful for our listeners to know a little bit of family background. So I love my parents to bits, but there was domestic violence in my family. So, and, when I decided to go, I came up with a dream basically for myself. And that dream was to leave that environment, which I knew I just couldn't survive too long in. And the dream was to go to the US, study electrical engineering, do what I love around technology, and be independent, not just financially, but also personally. So that was my drive. And I did this secretly, believe it or not, because I knew my parents, especially my father, wouldn't allow me to go to the US at the age of 17. So when I went, in all honesty, Gareth, I couldn't care less about the cultural change because I was there to survive. I was there, it was tough. When I look back, oh my God, would I do it again if I were 17? No, maybe. It looks so scary actually, but I'm so grateful. And I always recommend it to my mentees, friends, like if you have an opportunity to live in another study, work, whatever is the case, go for it. So that cultural change for me was all about learning, but a shock, yes, a surprise, but it's actually an expansion that I couldn't possibly describe, which was so wonderful and fruitful afterwards.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I went from the UK to Canada, which is not as much of maybe a difference, but I still learned so much from that experience of working abroad, because it's so different going on holiday to living and working in a country, isn't it? And you're forced to grow up, essentially, aren't you?
Totally. And I have to add one thing, Gareth. I mean, another cultural angle, I guess, was I went to all girls high school. Amazing. We still have our WhatsApp groups. A very strong, small community, to a university that is thousands of students. And in engineering, I was one of 5 girls in a class of 180. So that was definitely a big cultural change, in addition to, multinational elements.
Of course. Well, I want to come back to that, because we're going to talk about that, because that is something that, you are very passionate about changing, is, obviously more girls in engineering or STEM-based career endeavors. So we can come back to that in a minute. But what I want to ask you about, you're clearly a very driven person, okay? Looking at your LinkedIn profile, you can see immediately that you have you've got something within you whereby you want to change things and you want a better life for yourself and your family, essentially. Where does that come from?
Oh, thank you. It probably coming from several answers for that. One is probably coming from an emerging country like Turkey, where you can. I mean, you may have something one day, the next day you don't have it. And my father had a business, a factory basically, or tried to run a factory, which would go bankrupt. He would be in prison the next day. So seeing these things, literally, one day you're meeting the prime minister, the next day you're in prison. That, of course, does give one drive to say, I need to make the most of whatever time I have. On top of that, I had actually 6 near-death experiences. One was early on 4 of them were very early on in my career, almost right after university, just a year into my career. 2 major earthquakes, 2 terrorist bomb attacks, 5 buildings away from where I work and live. You see those body parts on the ground and you say, that could really be me. I mean, it really, the penny drops in a way.
Where was this? Sorry.
Istanbul. That was in Istanbul, and all in 6 months. I basically very, very short time, where I was not scared at the time. I don't know. I was single, and I guess I was not scared of death. But I did come out with a self-determination to say, I'm going to be my best self every day, however long I live. Best, daughter, best employee, whatever. And I try. I really try. I think that is genuinely the drive. And earlier this year, I did have COVID also. I couldn't breathe. And I have such empathy first of all, my most positive energy and love to everyone, all of us obviously have been impacted in so many ways. And having gone through that near-death experience myself, it was another reminder, I have to say, where you could be gone in 17 and a half days, right? or this evening for that matter. So I just want to make the most meaningful impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Every day is important, isn't it? And you need to basically not take anything for granted, I suppose. But yeah, so that's really powerful, Didem, and I think that will resonate with a lot of people. But so moving this forward, then I wanted to talk about the beginnings of your career. You got a job with Capgemini, obviously a global consultancy. I'm assuming that was your first step into the IT stroke business world then from academia, correct?
Yes, exactly.
So you went into the consultancy world, which is not for the faint-hearted. It's a high-pressure environment. Tell us what you learned about that experience working for Capgemini.
That was fantastic. I call it the MBA into one's career, because all hands on, you see so many clients, you learn so fast, you travel, work on client side. And that for me was in a foreign country for me. I was 6th year actually into my US, North America experience, but still, I think 5-6 years is not that long when you consider it in a professional life, especially. So it's amazing experience. I do share very openly. At the end of that year, I actually burned myself out because I love my job so much and I love my clients so much. I just didn't know my boundaries. And you look back, oh my God, I was just naive, I think. But yeah, at the end of that year, my parents also decided to divorce. So I said, okay, maybe I go back to Turkey, help my mother settle her new life, and also I recharge a little bit. And that was the best thing, one of the best things I did in my career, because everybody was against me at that time, Gareth. Even my family, like, don't come, you're okay, you'll take. And my professors, like, what are you doing? You just started an amazing career in the US. But my gut feel said I needed to go back to Turkey at that point, help my mother who had sacrificed so much. And that was a strange move for many, but for me, that was the best decision.
So talk us through the important milestones in your career then, right up to the point of possibly joining BT, where it seems that you made your breakthrough in terms of, more leadership-led roles. Is that fair to say?
Yes, absolutely. So it's interesting. Basically, Capgemini, I'm super grateful because it was a very rapid learning. How do you talk with C-level executives and make an impact in a very short amount of time, learn fast, and so on. So I love consulting so much for many of those reasons. Then I was incredibly fortunate to ride the explosive growth of mobile industry. I joined Motorola in Turkey, and I think actually that was a gift, such a gift in my career, because in Turkey, my leadership, and it's an exploding industry at the time. Turkey is such a small, it's a big market, but small dispensable income. So somebody had to do a lot of, let's say, responsibilities. And I was able to shoulder projects, programs that probably would take me 15 years if I were in the UK. I simply wouldn't be allowed to be there, shouldering those types of programs. And that was phenomenal acceleration of my career. I'm very, very grateful. Wonderful company, wonderful leadership. I'm still best friends with my manager there. And that led me to then basically rethink my path. As much as I loved Turkey and working in Motorola in Turkey, I also realized that I wanted to do more. And I had a very candid chat with my manager and leaders at that time, saying, I don't want your job. It's not exciting for me. I remember that conversation. And I said, I guess I need to do an MBA or a revamp, go back to the US and, aim a bit bigger. They were supportive. I got a sponsorship. It's a very difficult time, actually. So I'm so grateful for their trust in me, for the investment. I hope I returned it. And that's when I did my MBA at Columbia University, rejoined Motorola in the UK this time, in EMEA. Amazing work there. And it was time for me, I think, to move on then to BT, simply because I'll be, again, very candid. we in EMEA, even at the very leadership, at this very senior leadership level, were simply being not heard by the headquarters, which is always a typical problem with, I think, global companies. We said, we need more, we need to hear to consumers. The answer was yes, but the execution was not there. And we couldn't, I think, influence it well enough. So that's when I decided I'm not having the impact I want to have. I mean, it's an amazing company. Motorola is still an amazing company, but I didn't, I didn't like the direction. And when we tried to change it, it didn't seem like the influence was there. So that's when I joined actually Greenwich Consulting again, which became EY. And they also focus on technology, TMT clients, basic technology, media, and telecommunications. Then I joined BT.
Fantastic. So you obviously went from BT then to Microsoft, where you've pretty much been, apart from a year out, did Accenture
Exactly a year, yes. Another MBA.
Yeah. Talk us through your initial experience of working in the UK, what you thought of the UK, and obviously the journey towards joining Microsoft.
Actually, it's a while back, but I do remember it was so tough because of me making the very, very wrong assumption that, US and UK are similar. Oh boy, did I get my lesson well? I was like, okay, so I mean, everything is so different, first of all. And I'm so grateful to this US and also this country for the learning, but it was just like, I think that assumption is seriously wrong. Yeah. And I was just thinking Turkish, of course. I'm coming from, Turkey. You think they are very similar, but no. I mean, it's just almost black and white from a professional experience.
What sticks out for you in terms of like little things? What little things did you think, oh God, this is so different to what I'm used to? What weird little things are there about the UK that the people who live in the UK wouldn't really notice?
I don't know. Well, little things. I think they seemed like little things, but they were very big things. But in my experience, at least, because the funny thing is, I'm a very direct, straightforward person, and I think that worked, and culturally too, but also personally, I think I just cut to the chase. I think that was fine in the US, but in the UK, I do remember coming out of meetings. That in the meeting, I just don't realize anything, and then I leave the meeting room, and that's what he meant. Oh my God, you just have to decode the language and the politeness and the manners. And the humor. I mean, sometimes maybe they were just making fun of me. I don't mean it in a negative sense. Sometimes making fun of me or with the topic, I would just get it afterwards. And that's awful, I have to say, but also fun. I didn't take it like, I don't think I ever took it like personally in a mean way. They are discriminating. Not at all. But in a professional setting, yes, there were very funny incidents. I think that came out the most in British Telecom because the majority of the population was, I think, from British background.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful. Because I really adore, admire, and respect this culture so much. The depth of, intellect, the manners, everything. And I hope I'm 15 years here, but still learning, still trying to survive.
Microsoft, then let's talk about Microsoft very quickly. You have been there through a very, very notable but quite strange period in the history of this incredible company. Microsoft kind of went off the rails a little bit, didn't they? And
yeah.
Do you know what? I was talking to someone like this with a previous guest, okay? And I said, who inspires you was one of the questions in the business world. And they said Satya Nadella, because they said he is such a down-to-earth guy. And when he took over at Microsoft, they were getting killed in certain markets. Obviously, they've been market leaders throughout in certain areas, but it was a very difficult challenge to turn the ship around, to put them back at the top of the tree where they've always been, sort of thing. And he said he's not like an egotistical person at all. He's very, very humble, very, very present, and he just and that just sort of others around him feed off that. And obviously, I think he was one of the many reasons that Microsoft turned it around, and now they're flying, aren't they? So talk us through that journey and your part in that journey as well, and generally the culture in Microsoft over the last sort of 10, 15 years.
I feel, again, incredibly lucky, incredibly privileged to be able to ride that journey. I mean, my Motorola experience was seeing how a technology can take off. And then Microsoft journey was multiple technologies, but then that cultural transformation is perhaps once in a lifetime experience that I'm very grateful for. So I joined, you're right, during Steve Ballmer times in 2012. And Steve, I mean, I love passion and I love passionate people. Steve Ballmer is, I think, a fantastic example of that. I would see the guy jumping up
the stage on the famous footage.
Yeah. I mean, I still remember those days, and I was like, "What? Seriously?" In front of 18,000 people. So I have huge respect for his passion and drive. And however, the Microsoft I joined, in all honesty, I almost left at the end of first year because the culture was not where I wanted to be. I mean, I just couldn't associate my values, what Didem stands for and how Didem wants to work. I had even offers. One mentor said, "This will change, hang in there," and so on and so forth. So the culture was just black and white to what it is today. And it's not that change, that journey has been phenomenal to observe. So when on Satya's first day, I was actually in Redmond. Totally coincidentally, I had a team meeting there, and because of the jet lag, I woke up at 3 a.m., 6 a.m. We get this notification, Satya, and we will announce our new CEO, who's Satya, type of thing. So I went to the announcement studio early on, just walk around, and I was coming up to, it's kind of a square place with multiple floors, and I was walking up the stairs to the second floor to take a view, where should I stand and listen to this thing. I just put my head up the stairs. There's 3 gentlemen in front of me: Bill Gates, Steve Ballmer, and Satya Nadella. All I could say was, like, not good.
That must be quite intimidating.
I'm new to the company, and all I could say is eek in front of these 3 people. Not good. One of the most humiliating, embarrassing moments in my career. And they probably thought, what a mishire. Oh my God, take this woman out. But they weren't like that. And I'm going to tie it to Satya's reaction that day. I mean, he was so humble and just smiled politely. Bill Gates was clearly used to these things, so he said good morning. And long story short, I couldn't agree more. Satya listens, and I would strongly recommend his book, Hit Refresh, if the listeners haven't read it yet. And really, the book is how we function today.
So what is his book called, Didem?
Hit Refresh. Hit Refresh.
What did Microsoft do to change the culture there? There seemed to be a sea shift around 10 years ago. There's something changed in Microsoft.
It was with Satya. So February 2014 was when he joined as our CEO, or became a CEO. He was inside there already. And what he did first was to bring his leadership together on these, seriously break the walls. It was all about silos, AAA personalities, internal competition. It just, didn't make sense. There's the technology sector is always growing. Instead of that, people were basically having their empires or turf wars internally. So he really, really stopped that by very practical applications like Friday meetings. His SLT meets face to face, or virtually these days, every Friday, and just talk together all day, and that cascaded to all of the company. I would summarize it as a mixture of people really come first, so the execution followed that, and growth mindset, meaning it's okay to fail, we don't blame each other, we learn from it, and we work together, collaboration. Is it perfect? Of course not. But, seeing many other companies who are talking a lot about these concepts, but the execution isn't there, it shows. So it really shows. And that's why I think Microsoft is doing so well these days, because people are happy. I mean, there's no business success, if there's no employee success.
Yeah.
it starts from there. I mean, employees are fans of the company, first of all.
Yeah, certainly. So he basically took the shift away from being obsessed with the customers and the competition and basically said, look, let's look at our real assets, which are our people, and place them and improve.
And customers, and customers.
Along with the customer. Yeah, of course. Okay, brilliant. Microsoft seem to be doing exceptionally well at the moment, and they seem to have that spring in their step that they had in the 90s, and I think that's quite clear.
It's the empathy for each other, for customers, for our society. I think I would do it injustice if I also don't mention the ethical, whatever we do, responsible, ethical, inclusive, doing it the right way is so important. There are so many, official, formal programs and informal opportunities that you're proud to work for the company because the values are just, I think, world class. And it's an honor to be a role model to our partners or customers and learn from them. Not know it all, as Satya says, not know it all, but learn it all. We try our best to do that.
Thank you for tuning in. I just want to take this opportunity to thank some of our friends. Firstly, all-round tech PR superstars Nelson Bostock. Whether you're an established technology brand or a fast-growing fintech, you need the right team behind you, a team that understands your brand, your purpose, your goals, and can really help you define your narrative and tell your story, the story that matters. These guys tick all of those boxes and more. You can find them at nelsonbostock.com. That's Nelson Bostock, the CK on the end, .com. Highly recommended. I also want to thank Tramshed Tech. We've come down here and they've kindly allowed us to use their world-class recording studio facility down here. But they do office space, they do events. I can't recommend them enough. That's Tramshed Tech. And also a big shout out to Be Digital, who make all this possible. Be Digital enable organizations to become lean, agile, and to attract the right talent. That's bedigitaluk.com.
Let's talk about the present then. I was really excited to get you on. I set myself a goal at the beginning of this year of trying to attract more female guests onto the podcast, okay? The podcast is obviously called the Tech Leaders Podcast. So let's talk about women in technology leadership roles. So first of all, can you tell us about your role and what the purpose of your role is?
Absolutely. I'm very fortunate to work with hundreds of amazing people in Europe, Middle East, Africa, and we basically accelerate our data AI consumption business. So I should say we are two halves or two in a box. There's the way we see the sales process at Microsoft is you envision something with the customer and shake hand, or you try it and shake hands. Everything after shaking hands is basically, we call it customer success. So we focus on data AI, and I think there are more than 70 subsidiaries in EMEA. So it's a very fun region too.
What are you doing within your area of Microsoft then to improve the gender split so there are more women coming through the filter to become leaders? And I know you're very passionate about this, Didem, so I wanted to use this as a segue. What are you doing in your area of Microsoft to sort of enable the gender diversity split to improve?
Thank you so much. My passion for diversity and inclusion in technology increased over years, and I think it really took a big it became a major focus for me when I joined Microsoft Research to incubate business AI solutions. This was, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, because I saw the lack of diversity in our teams was shocking. I mean, in general, at Microsoft, unfortunately, we have very few women, but at Microsoft Research and at AI, it was even worse, I'm sorry to say. So I thought I need to do something. I mean, this is not good for the business. It's not good for the society. AI is such a critical, such a powerful technology. I just wanted to make sure I've done my best to land the technology in the best way possible and responsible, inclusive way. So one of the things that we did is put together a team of about 80 volunteers. We hadn't even met each other worldwide, from data AI related roles, as well as Microsoft education and philanthropy teams to say, let's do some pilots, both in EMEA and North America. Let's do some hackathons. We call these sometimes Alice envisions the future, sometimes Girls in AI. And basically, we had weekend hackathons with high school girls. So to teach them how easy it is to actually use AI data and come up with something that they dream. Like they would come in incredibly scared on a Saturday morning, like, what's a hackathon? What's AI? Can I do this? Can I leave at lunchtime? Type of thing. And then at the end of Sunday, after their pitch sessions in the hackathon, they wouldn't shut up talking about their projects. I'm going to start a new business. I'm going to submit this to Microsoft Research. So,
but that's fantastic, though, isn't it? Because that means that you're getting somewhere with their confidence. It's all about mentality, surely.
Totally. You just see the light going on over a weekend. And we did this in Seattle, San Francisco, New York, and some places in EMEA. And it became a program at that time. And when I switched to Accenture, even Accenture and Avanade, our joint venture with Microsoft, agreed to scale these or wanted to participate. So then COVID happened and everything stopped. But I do very much hope we will pick up again. So that was one of the things. But to answer your question in a more structured way, and I do mean other programs, similar things, I think there are two sides to the equation. One, diversity is okay. Actually, diversity is almost never an issue at companies like Microsoft. But in the general sector, it's a huge issue. So that's why we wanted to focus on young girls about to decide on their university choices. So how do we spread the love? How do we give them confidence that there's nothing to be scared about technology? They can do whatever. They could be a dancer, but they will be a better dancer if they embrace technology. So that's one area, like increasing the diversity, making sure people understand technology isn't something to be scared of. Working with schools, institutions. I'm on the board of an education trust trying to do the same thing at scale in the UK. So that's one thing. The other side of the equation is inclusion, which is sometimes an even bigger problem because, you can be diverse, but if you're not including people, if people feel they cannot be themselves, then all you have is churn, right? And that's a very costly, very sad outcome of all the hard work that's going in. So that's also what we focus on at Microsoft, and I know our other similar big tech firms, where how can we show the light that there's a career progression, that we can change things. So I'm involved with many initiatives inside Microsoft on that side as well. How do we change the culture? So it's not just gender diversity, inclusion, it's many other things.
I was reading something the other day about how much progress was made during the Industrial Revolution to change the world from, farming economy to sort of a machine-based, a technology-based economy with just 50% of the workforce. Can you imagine how good we could be with 100% of the workforce?
Yes.
We'd be much better.
Exactly.
But this is an important point, though, I suppose. It definitely is an important point. Why are there not more girls, going into technology-led careers, do you think? Maybe that's changed now, potentially. Hopefully that's changed now. But in the last 20 years, I come from a recruitment background. I look at CVs and applicants all the time. You're talking, 10% female, 20% female tops, if you're lucky, is still a problem. Why is this? Why is it? Why are we here? How much are we doing to change it?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a book about this that explains this so well. Emily Chang's Brotopia just explains it so well because it's everywhere. It's in the education system. In the UK, for instance, I was shocked to find out that the exam structures are completely different for girls versus boys because we think girls are better in literature, and so these types of channeling of girls towards non-science, non-STEM areas, first of all, starts at the age of around 7, believe it or not. So that's when they decide they cannot do math or science. And this is global, not just UK. There's the education piece. There is the sector itself having, macho behaviors, which is changing, but, it is there. And it started apparently with even, Xerox days. The book talks about the history, how one printer became, an objectification, laser printers making basically female workers in the industry become objectified. And then the VCs, universities, even government, it's just basically everywhere that we don't even hear it. The girls, we females don't even realize it, but it becomes almost an instinct. Oh, that's not for me. So it's really uphill. And then, there's a lot of so much. I mean, we keep talking about it. There's so much going on, etc. But I'm very, very sad to say and observe the pandemic, whatever was done to, let's say, improve 2% or whatever diversity is now gone, completely wiped out. We probably went back maybe 50 years in diversity inclusion because of the pandemic. I mean, don't take that percentage as an official figure, but some very serious backward thing, which is heartbreaking because of the pandemic, both professionally and personally. This is global, but it's very applicable in the UK as well.
Right. Okay.
We have basically an exodus of women in tech because women are the first ones to give up their jobs or take a break to take care of the childcare things, being locked down. UK, actually, to your point, might have been impacted worse than some countries because we had very long lockdowns, right? So, but I don't know the specific statistics there.
Let's say male. What can male technology-led business leaders do to improve this ratio and get this back on track?
Thank you so much. And they already do so much. I think any good leader who wants a good team and a good business realizes this is something we have to crack. There's no luxury about it. So I think there are so many things, but my most practical tips is, like with any business problem, we have our monthly reviews, our scorecards, performance metrics, right? I mean, I need to deliver X amount of revenue. I need to make sure my teams are happy. This is a metric that they have to be accountable for, report on, then things get done. That's how we do it at Microsoft. I mean, Satya has, and our team, I mean, not just Satya, our CEO, of course, it's mandatory. It's part of everyone's scorecard. So that is the basic minimum. And then I think as a male leader, I would just say empathy, and then looking at the team with all honesty. Are people being themselves, or are they actually having to go out of their way to keep their jobs? What is the reality? And then take some. It will have to be on a case-by-case basis, right? But the first thing is to acknowledge the problem, to accept the problem, and set a goal.
That's really good advice. So I know, Didem, you are passionate about technology solving problems of this nature and other problems as well. Now, there's something that I know you are passionate about as well, which is changing some paradigms, but also the pandemic has had a lot of non-obvious consequences across many areas of life. And I know one of them is domestic violence. Now, you threw a figure at me before when we were talking beforehand, which I was absolutely shocked about. So do you want to, can you just take it from here and tell the listeners what this problem looks like and how potentially we can solve it with technology?
Sure. If I may step back before that, I mean, I feel incredibly fortunate to be in technology space because with big data, AI, mixed reality, quantum computing, all these amazing technologies converging right now as we speak, I genuinely believe that we can solve any problem we want. I mean, we just need to find out as humans what we are passionate about. Do you care about cancer? You go solve it. Is it something else? Is it COVID? I mean, the technology is there, honestly, to solve these or find new opportunities. It doesn't have to be no problem. So for me, because of my childhood experience there, domestic violence is something that I feel very I don't know what to say. I mean, I care about it because I knew it's like living in a thriller movie. Like you don't know what's going to happen to you or your mom the next moment. It's incredibly traumatic. So COVID, with all these billions of people being stuck at home, it resulted in some, I mean, as some of our listeners, I think, would very well know, it doubled, basically 100% increase in some countries like India, Colombia, probably Turkey, but we probably don't have the figures. And it on average globally, it's about 30-35% increase in domestic abuse, domestic violence. This is in addition to all the sexual harassment, all the other systemic problems we are living. So what I have been focusing on, Gareth, is how can we use technology to A, prevent this, and B, help the victims. So I did some research and put together an article, which hopefully will be published next week or so, to say, okay, these are the tools by technology category, like wearables or chatbots, or doesn't have to be rocket science. One of the things, for instance, I'm super amazed by is some governments are using AI, ML to predict domestic violence and inform their police force so they can act very swiftly the moment these victims ask for help, because it's predictable actually.
Is that based on obviously if someone has if a man has a criminal record for being violent against his partner, is that how you obviously track that data and you keep an eye on that situation type thing? Is that what you're talking about?
I believe so. So I was not involved in that project directly, but it's basically how do you train, what kind of data is it? Could be based on, let's say, where the regions, the number of similar cases reported, etc. So this is such an amazing way to use AI ML to say, okay, there are some probably cases bubbling up, and that's exactly what they are doing.
I think AI and sort of the progression of technology generally has its critics, okay, but I think this is something we can all agree is a very worthwhile cause or use case for artificial intelligence technology. Thank you for making that point. I think it's really important that just for general awareness reasons that people are, mindful of this. So let's just move on from that one into other use cases for AI then. And what other world problems do you think technology can solve in the next sort of 5 years?
Oh, wow. Big question. I mean, maybe this is the engineering mindset. Like you would see this at our friends in engineering, Microsoft friends, like anything. Yeah, you can solve anything with technology. Well, not everything, I would think, but yeah, many things. So for me, what is most inspired? There is the obvious answers to that, right? I do think just like COVID, I mean, AI helped so much coming up with these vaccinations and all these things. So health, definitely, sustainability, definitely. There's huge focus, amazing experience. And of course, any industry, financial services, I mean, that's what that's my day job, right? How do we help this industry, that industry? For me personally, I think the most inspiring use cases areas is where we make accelerated impact at scale so people can live better. I mean, for instance, I have huge respect for my friends at Microsoft Philanthropies. There's a program around defending democracy. I mean, coming from Turkey, I know how the country has been suffering. It's painful, and you can use actually technology and AI to help with such cases around the world, and that's exactly what we are doing. We meaning Microsoft Philanthropies. It's these types of, I think, AI for good cases that just make me so happy and grateful to be in this industry. There's so many of them.
Absolutely. Is there anything you're fearful of in relation to the development of AI?
Absolutely. I mean, as with anything, almost anything in life, I mean, there's a good side and a bad side, right? There are huge risks. There's no doubt about that. I mean, facial recognition, of course. And I also feel very grateful that we are in Europe, we are in the UK, where these things are discussed in a much more advanced, comprehensive way. I think, we as citizens, I mean, we cannot leave the risks of any technology to this government, that company. No, I mean, we are responsible as individuals to first of all, educate ourselves and then understand the risks and also speak up if we think there's something wrong. So yes, absolutely, there are risks, but the benefits outweigh the risks. That's my personal opinion, not a Microsoft or anything else. So we need to be good citizens and be responsible for our, let's say, goodness.
Brilliant answer. The pandemic, then, let's just go to that. While we're looking forward, okay, what do you, in terms of the world of work, in terms of obviously people have been working from home pretty much
non-stop for like 13, 14 months.
Yes,
It's difficult when you got little children running around. You've got to lock yourself in.
for
And I know other
sure.
people got other problems, noise or whatever. And but everyone's had to go through this, and it's been certainly been a journey. What do you think you personally will take from the pandemic in terms of your leadership style, the way you work yourself? Are there any lessons and things you've done as a result of the pandemic that you will take forward?
I think for me, some things have changed and some things have not changed at all, and I'll explain. For me, technology and our work is only for one person, so it's one purpose. So that is so we can all live better, we can all be happier. And I was at Accenture when this thing first happened. I mean, the pandemic took off, and we put together, within days, we put together a humanitarian program with Microsoft to offer free of charge help to any government, etc. And we launched a help virtual agent, COVID virtual agent in India for 1.3 billion citizens in 10 days, for instance. So I'm sharing this as an example. Pandemic offers us new opportunities to help each other, to support and to live better. It brought some of the huge problems in our society to the surface, like domestic duties. Like, why should women pay the price for the pandemic by giving up their careers? Like, let's face the reality, accept the reality, and solve it. So I think pandemic has been very helpful in many. Like, I'm not belittling its horrible, devastating impact, but let's use it as an opportunity to improve ourselves, actually. So that's many things I think will change for the better going forward. I do think the next 10 years will be an amazing decade of growth and creativity and innovation, because we simply will have to do it. And work-life balance, remote working, I hope, believe it or not, we had this problem in Microsoft where everybody had to be at headquarters in Redmond. If you're outside, the opportunities are so less. It was a frustration for our employees who are not, including myself, not in Redmond. That is changing. Is it changing enough? No. But I think it will be cultural shifts, technological shifts, and societal shifts that hopefully will carry us forward in an accelerated way.
The studio I'm in is about 2-second walk down the corridor to my Microsoft office. It's the Cardiff Microsoft office is here, and I've never seen anyone in there. So I'm assuming that you guys have a remote first policy for your employees. Is that something that you generally are going to take forward post-pandemic now?
Microsoft, even before the pandemic, we always had the option to work from almost always. I mean, it depends. If you have a, let's say, UK team, you do need that FaceTime. But I was always global based in UK. So if I'm not traveling, I could work from home. Nobody cared. So that was there already. But I think post-pandemic, it will be even more so. We felt that I traveled 60-70% sometimes, some periods. Now we realize, okay, that was not necessary. It's completely possible. Not 100% of the time, but it really works. I think the self-discipline part, we will all need to work a bit about, what are your boundaries? Are you taking a walk outside, or are you just, back to back meetings, which is something I'm horrible at. So I have a long way to go there, for sure.
Absolutely. So I wanted to finish on 2 questions, okay? But I want to get your advice for the listeners, okay? So you are an inspiration to many people, especially young female engineers who want to pursue, or salespeople who want to pursue a career in technology and become leaders like yourself. What advice would you give to a young female, maybe engineer or something, who wants to pursue a similar career path to what you have pursued?
There are I think 4 or 5 important points. One is dream big. Like, really have a dream, and the dreams will change. There will be different dreams, but at least think bold, big, dream big, and even if you get to 60% of it, still you're ahead. Second thing is, I would recommend lots of volunteer work. What I mean is, if you're in this role, let's say, but you want to get there, dream where you want to go, and based on that dream, do some volunteer projects, so you get to know that team, that business, and they get to know you, and you kind of create your own opportunities. That's incredibly important and a safe way to try and error. Another thing, of course, is sponsors, mentors, mentees, not just I don't even use the word network, but it's about being fans of others and creating fans for yourself, because nobody can succeed in this sector alone. And it's true for males as well. It's not just females. And I think the last thing is, I explained with the lotus flower analogy. I mean, you will get many bumps on the way, many unpleasant experiences seemingly, but I would say encourage the listeners to think of all those things as an opportunity, as a springboard for growth. And I'm not saying that lightly. If we give ourselves enough time to think outside the box, we can definitely turn those unpleasant projects or sexual harassment, whatever this situation is, upside down, so you end up in a better place in line with your dream path. So the lotus flower, why I use that? I'm a visual person. I mean, it is one of the most gorgeous flowers in my opinion, and yet it is raised in the most disgusting, smelliest, muddiest waters. So that's what I think of when I face a challenge in my career. Okay, how do I raise what kind of a lotus can I nurture in this situation? And it really works. There's always a good solution, but we just need to, walk through the storm.
Absolutely, and believe in yourself, of course. I think it's that's incredible advice for that, Didem. I really appreciate you giving us your thoughts on that very important topic. So let's finish on this one, and then what person, book, or story have you been inspired by recently?
So many. I think recently I would say RBG. I think she's such an amazing role model, in the sense that not only did she do her job well, did she dream big and did it, but she also helped pave the way for others to realize their dreams. So,
sorry, who is this?
Ruth Bader Ginsburg, RBG. Ruth Bader, who passed away, and I mean, she's just such an amazing role model, inspiring leader in so many ways, in such an important space like law. So I cannot help but mention her.
She passed away last year, I think, didn't she? But
yes.
She had an incredible career in the legal sector in the US, I believe, yeah.
Against all odds. I mean, her story is quite amazing. If our listeners, I would doubt if they're not, but I'm reading all her books pretty much. It's just amazing lessons in every.
Anyone you could recommend as a good introduction to the plight of RBG?
Almost all of them are equally amazing. If they want, they could start with the documentaries as well, but it's just a phenomenal story. And I in general, I think what inspires me is the people that take the hard way. It's easy to be a sheep, as we say in Turkish. It's easy not to speak up. It's easy to just, ride the wave or whatever. But yeah, I mean, if you're seeing a problem, being able to speak up or try to solve it in your best effort is the noble thing. So anybody who's done that inspires me, really. Doesn't have to be big names. yeah.
I just wanted to ask you before we wrap up then, Didem, how do people find out about the causes you're involved with, particularly the Creative Education Trust and all the stuff you're doing with improving diversity in the workplace? Where can people go to find out more and get involved with these causes?
Thank you so much. So, I think LinkedIn might be a very easy way. I try to put all the stuff. There is also Royal Society of Arts Fellowship, which I think is also an amazing. I just became one recently. So it's about doing good for the society, in short. So these things I try to keep there. And I also try to write articles in Forbes Tech Council about the causes I care about. And I'm super open. If they try to connect with me there or on Twitter, I always accept and happy to have a chat and join forces.
Brilliant. Well, look, Didem, thank you so much. I've loved our conversation. We've covered some really important topics, but it's been very, very interesting generally. So, really appreciate you coming on. And I hope to catch up with you another time.
Likewise, Gareth. This was fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. Have a wonderful day.
If you enjoyed and took value from the show, then don't forget to subscribe and also feel free to leave a review. We would really appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening.